the foresight to work to generate scientific evidence on how cereals, which are a very important feature of Indian diet. So my presentation today will be concentrating, apart from other things, the three important elements of traditional Indian diet: A, coarse cereals; B, dietary spices; and C, our practice of having fermented foods like idli and pickles and chutneys and preserves, which now we call probiotics. So many of the previous speakers in these series of orations have also tried to link allopathy and naturopathy, or link Vedic wisdom with modern medicine. My humble attempt today is also in the same direction. So we have a large country where diverse cultures converge, and we have a rich culinary heritage. India is called, has been labeled by our revered Prime Minister as the pharmacy of the world, but it is also, we call, the nutrition nursery of the world. In every village in India, there are nurseries and kitchen gardens and ethnobotanically medicinal plants. And today also the health needs of a large majority of our population are served by traditional indigenous systems of medicines. I'll be coming to that. And India primarily is divided into 4 regions: North, South, East and West. And cuisine from northern India uses cream and oil. Like they say, if I may, that in Haryana there is doodh dahi ka khana, and so also in Punjab with the big glasses of lassi. And southern Indian is less greasy. As we all know, many people say that South Indian breakfast is very popular. It is light. Most dishes are roasted or steamed, and coconut is a staple. Eastern India is known for its desserts, rasgulla, sandesh, and Western India has a variety of cooking styles because of the many sea landings and many mixing of cultures on our Arabian Sea coast. So diet originates and evolves by local and climatic conditions. If people in a humid environment are having coconuts, nature has also given the coastal areas a number of coconut trees. The problem which is occurring today in modern lifestyle, as Dr. Yadav would agree with me, we call what we do mind-body medicine or even lifestyle medicine. That irrespective of the rationale of nature and the logic of nature, we are trying to eat anything and everything, whether it is suiting our genetics, our epigenetics, our temperature conditions, our geographical conditions, our work requirements. Food was evolved by early man, okay? And this doodh dahi ka khana was for farmers who would work, have something in the morning, then work through the afternoon, and by late afternoon, early evening have a meal. But we have, if I may use the word, made a mess of all this because we somehow, by information and knowledge, we may have progressed from data to information to knowledge, but we have lost in wisdom, and it is our time to redeem our nutritional health, our nutritional literacy, and therefore our nutritional destiny. So, Indian heritage of regional and local food and health, we shall be sharing these presentations and you can reflect upon them in your spare time according to your time and inclination. So coming to spices, as I said, By and large, in our country, medical needs of the rural population are catered to mostly by Indian systems of medicine, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and I may add to this Yoga, naturopathy, and in the northeast we have a special system which we call Saurikpa. Apart from this, all over the world we have traditions of Tibetan, Chinese, Japanese medicine and Mediterranean diet. Plants are natural and traditional sources of medication, and the use of herbs has been the mainstay of therapeutics. So this is a slide which is telling us that most of what we eat is having some benefits to us, provided we eat with rationale, with wisdom and logic in mind. And our study on dietary spices showed us that yes, spices if taken in normal amounts and prepared in the way traditional cooking was done in the kitchens would actually be beneficial and not cause acidity or ulcers, and this has been scientifically proven by the research studies of Dr. Shiv Kumar Sareem when he was at Maulana Medical College, by our studies over 6 to 8 years while we were doing PhDs, and all over the world these things have been proven that many of the spices are related, sir, to our natural neurotransmitters, and the gut evolved from early organisms. It was almost like seawater being there, and our natural neural receptors and neurotransmitters were evolved keeping in mind the food we take. I shall give you a very small example. Glutamate is a receptor which stimulates our nervous system, and in many types of Chinese cooking, glutamate salts are used. Similarly, researchers all over the world have proved that many chemoreceptors are also thermoreceptors and mechanoreceptors. So sorry for using these scientific terms. Basically, it is the same aqueous system. When we eat food, the temperature matters, the chemical composition matters, as well as the density and the bulk and at the speed which we eat, and the combination of all elements in the thali also matters. One another small example I shall give you. Many times we take lemon or some kind of chutney with meals which are fried, because these are weak acids, and they will be read in our school chemistry classes that weak acids always act as buffers for strong acids. So that is the mechanism by which they prevent acidity in the stomach. So another example of a spice, you call it mulati in Punjabi, and we call it licorice in English, and in botany we call it Glycyrrhiza glabra. So that has about 7 types of anti-ulcer effects, about 5 types of effects on the respiratory mucosa, and that is why many times it is dealt with for sore throat, for dry cough and the like. So many actions, anti-cancer actions, immune booster action, antioxidant action, to name a few, along with reducing cholesterol, improving glucose tolerance, improving the glycemia occurring after a meal. I will just try to enlighten you that when we do studies regarding diabetes, we provide a meal which is standardized scientifically, and we measure the blood glucose level. This we call a meal tolerance test. And when we do this test, whatever changes occur due to the intervention which we use, like we use spice or coarse cereals or curd or yogurt, and then we see what are the changes. So we found all of these 3 substances would reduce the blood glucose after a meal. This we call acute effect. But if we give the same information in trials, in sachets or pouches, and work for few weeks to few months, then what we see is called improvement in our HbA1c scores, and that scientifically we call carbohydrate tolerance. Okay. Similarly, lipid levels. So we found in our study that Indian diet can be a prescription for metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome would be a cluster of diseases where we have diabetes, hypertension, high level of lipids in the body, and high cholesterol, and we have autonomic function imbalance, and also now people include lately over the past 10 years non-communicable diseases. We also include mental health issues. So this was what I wanted to tell about spices. So some spices, we did a study and published it about spices against COVID, where turmeric and ginger and cinnamon and clove and black pepper have been found effective in cellular models and also animal models and in human trials. One example I can give you, many people say that turmeric cannot be digested, but if it is heated, and especially if it is mixed with black pepper, then the enzyme combination is such that its take-up is much better. So these kind of scientific explanations, scientific validation we provide to the world, and that is how we can establish our unique Indian dietary wisdom to the pedestal it deserves and had lost over the past 50 years, if I may say. So probiotics, it's a new term, and so is the term. If somebody asks what is the largest organ in the human body, it is actually our microbiome. It is the bacteria which we hold in our gut, in our respiratory tract, in our urinary and reproductive tracts, and also on our skin. The wisdom that we have to keep the kitchen pure, we have to remove our shoes, and we have to have a very good way of hand hygiene. Now all that is being proved in microbiology in petri dishes that yes, this works. So probiotics or good bacteria were always part of our Indian diet, whether as achar or chutney or like fermented rice being put overnight and little bit fermented, then we make doshas and idlis and like that. So this fermentation, even in Asian cuisines like kimchi, Thai cuisine, even in Europe and Germany, sauerkraut. So all of these things partially digested the heavy food so that it becomes easy for us to digest, and the products of this digestion, which we call postbiotics, they can be short chain fatty acids, and they are very helpful. And we have also seen, we are doing clinical trials, we are doing studies on animal models in our laboratory, where we have seen that probiotics help against neurodegenerative disorders, Parkinson's disease, neurodevelopmental disorders. We Indians never had that incidence of Parkinson's disease before 40-50 years. Now, adopting the modern lifestyle, but in an unwise way, has led to this. So neurodevelopmental disorders, children with learning disability, with autism spectrum disorders, with attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, all of these, as well as patients of depression, are benefited by probiotics. It is all there for you to see. You can Google, and the scientific evidence is there. But we always had it with us in our dietary system. But somehow we lost track and thought that Indian diet is something which is more village type and it is not suited for modern tables. But now when the West tells us on a platter, oh, it always came from you. So now it is time, sir, to repossess and repurpose our wisdom and make it palatable for our younger generation for their good health. And that is our duty and that is our charge. So millets are what we call Shri Ann, which means the glorious food, nutri-cereals. They have many properties. They protect us from diabetes, reduce the risk of heart disease, improve digestive system, lower risk of cancer, detoxify the body, increase immunity in respiratory health, and also increase our energy levels and improve our muscular and neural systems, and protective against diseases like non-communicable metabolic syndrome and Parkinson's disease. Some traditional ways, they were always there with us in our ageless wisdom. That was mixing the flour, which has a high glycemic index, with something like besan or some millets flour and like that. So you could make a ragi roti, you could make a bajra roti or a jawar roti or a besan roti or a sattu ki roti and wheat roti. So if sometimes it is a cultivated taste for some of us, so we can start small, have it in small measures, add 1/4 of the millet flour to the main flour which we eat, and slowly this transition will happen. So from my experience, I would like to suggest that start small and that will be sustainable. When we have to make these, there was this book by Barry Hopkins that the whole world is going through an obesity epidemic. And why so? Because the part is that food everywhere. We are being bombarded by food, the ubiquity of food. We even are at a red light or at a petrol pump, then also. And then the corporates are so smart. They want us to have bigger portions, combo preparations. So that is where we have to put a stop and reclaim our health. So obesity epidemic, and this is a quotation that epidemics appear and often disappear without traces when a new culture period has started. So let us redeem the culture of eating with wisdom and getting again revising or revisiting the lessons from our traditional diet. We can reflect upon this slide, that is the vicious cycle of childhood obesity, where a child eats more and then becomes moderately obese and then severely obese and then obese adult, and sometimes the child is bullied and food is eaten as comfort or to escape all that. So food is not meant to be eaten for comfort. Food is meant only to be eaten for sustenance. So then we have the complications of childhood obesity, and here we have the social norms and values which have been changing, because for many years now we are having what we call a positive energy balance. Our cortisol hormone was made to make us ready to fight the predator in the jungles when we were in the early man civilized stage. But here we are on a red light, the light is not changing quickly, the cortisol level is rising and it is piling up glucose into fat in our tissues, and it is increasing our insulin resistance, our sensitivity to insulin is getting reduced, and that is the genesis of diabetes and stress related mental and physical problems. So I am not going into detail on this slide. Basically it tells us that urbanization, economic growth and technological changes for work, leisure and food processing and mass media growth, it has led to problems where in the beginning we passed from a stage where we had a low life expectancy, and then we had high fertility, high maternal and child mortality, still low life expectancy, but slowly we had a mortality decline, and now we are at this stage where our life expectancy is accelerated, but many of senior citizens either have had a knee transplant or are waiting for a kidney transplant. So we are trying to live on borrowed organs. So why not we do something about this? So we have to have healthy choices versus unhealthy ecology and economics. As I said, these things, food courts and all you can eat buffets, so they are alluring us and attracting us into making a mess of our bodies, and we have to be firm and take care of our nutrition and take care of our quality of life and not have comorbidities and not have early mortality because of that. So it's the same thing that we have to make time for our health, not always rushing, not overscheduling, not too much multitasking, not too much overdoing, and being mindful, not working for many long hours, having some time for a break, for a retreat, and having time for ourselves. Be good to ourselves, be good to our family, be good to our co-workers. So the mismatch is the struggle over millennia to eliminate the arduous effort could not foresee modern technology, that every day they had to work for the food for that day, and now we are not even pushing the keyboards, we are only doing the slide like this. So, the result is for all to see, and three major culprits: high fat, high sugar, high salt, and triad of comfort food, convenience food, and calorie dense foods. So why do we eat food? A major driver feeding our drive today to overeat is chronic stress. But food was always sacred in our Indian systems. People have to eat to nourish their bodies, but they have also to eat to nourish their souls. Indigenous cultures and religions recognize this sacredness of food. Most of the time we ask students, they give the answers in this bullet sheet. So we now come to spiritual nutrition, which is part of our ethos and ethics of Indian dietary practices. This is a book by Dr. Cousins, and what we now call rainbow diet, we always had that, okay? And we always had that platter, and how it is intuitively a balance of good nutrition. So spirituality, right from growing food to preparing food to serving food with attention, appreciating the beauty, giving food to, like Sir was talking about the philanthropic activities, and providing food is a great philanthropic activity, whether in our langars or bhandaras, and now in Navratras or Ekadashis or Pitri Paksha, when we give food to the needy. Enthusiasm and faith and grace. So, an important aspect of Indian culture is feasting and fasting. And now science also says that intermittent feasting and fasting would actually down-regulate and up-regulate our enzyme systems and our receptors in the gut, so that we are conditioned in a positive way. Just like we condition our physical muscles by doing some kind of exercise, and then maybe doing 5 days of exercise and 1 or 2 days of rest, and then again. So this is how this works. So the point is, we have to provide scientific validation to our ancient practices. So there should be a balance, there should be a harmony of opposites, and minimally processed foods, eating and cooking and serving with mindfulness and moderation. The 4 pillars of good nutrition are balance, regularity, but variety and moderation also. So हमारी आदर्श प्लेट में all this is what we should have in an ideal food plate, that at least half of the plate should be fruits and vegetables, and 1/4 could be for protein and some part for fat and the rest for carbohydrates, that also more of unrefined ones. Now, can you spot the difference in, this is bread slices, and to tell you something, brown bread is actually not having more fiber. It just has 8 grams of fiber. They just add brown color and cheat you. And then we have peanut butter, and we have banana slices on it. So basically, if we can reduce the size of our slices, reduce the amount of the fat spread, so small changes can go miles to improve our health. And it is better to choose dairy products which are low in fat. Adults in India are currently consuming 8 grams of salt a day. We talk to the villagers in our village postings in public health. Namak, so they think namak is only table salt, whereas they put namak in the dough which they need for making rotis also, but they don't consider it as added salt. So we can replace salt with herbs and spices to enhance the flavor of food, and it is also important to limit composition of added sugars, and many indigenous practices like putting khajur or dates, then putting honey and many other such things, or raisins in the sweet meats which we make, or desserts like kheer which we make instead of refined sugar. So this is a project which we have been doing for more than 30 years called the health-related information dissemination amongst youth. Life can be a smooth journey if you follow the traffic lights, that is which kind of foods are kind of red light and yellow light and green which you can take along. Now the same food pyramid has evolved into the concept of the food plate which I showed you. So this we did because many school teachers are there. We did it in many schools of Delhi, then we went pan-India, and we also went to neighboring countries, and now it is a global health thing, and that is what the award from WHO we got for global replication.